They either took the land or negotiated its purchase, and there was not very much difference between the two. The so-called Kemp Purchase of 1848, for example, resulted in some 5.5 million hectares of Maori land being bought for £2,000, which, converted to modern currency, equals parking metre change. The Waitangi Tribunal found that the Crown had taken 14 million hectares of land from Ngaitahu, more than half of the landmass of New Zealand. The iwi was left with only 14,470 hectares. The Crown, the tribunal said, had acted unconscionably and in repeated breach of the Treaty of Waitangi. But the Crown, at the time, consisted of the very settlers who were busy stealing Maori land, their hands, their arms, their entire bodies buried deep in the lolly jar. So, it was not surprising that the name Middle Island suited settler ambitions very well. An anonymous land could be exploited. It needed no fancy name, no higher philosophy. Even the novelist Samuel Butler's objective in taking up the huge Mesopotamia station in the upper Rangitata Valley was to double his capital and leave the country as soon as possible. He succeeded, and many of his fellow Europeans did too. Soon sheep barons bestrode mountains, valleys and plains, and wealthy southerners ruled the embryonic government. Middle Island became the centre of their universe and their pot of gold. As Kenneth B. Cumberland and R. P. Hargraves noted in Middle Island Ascendant, New Zealand Geographer, 1955, the contrasts between the two major islands were sharpened, for now a greater proportion of the population was found in the Middle Island, almost 2/3 in 1867, when the search for gold was at its height. In the Middle Island, the grazier and prospector penetrated both the dry, treeless continental interior and the mountain highland. In the late 1870s, the Golden Fleece had become the cornerstone of the colony's economy. And the Middle Island possessed the Golden Fleece. Everything changed, of course. The gold ran out. The land, particularly the high country, was sucked dry, first by burn-off, later by over-exploitation. Middle Island's population dominance over the north peaked in 1881. Then people began drifting north. By 1901, Middle Island was no longer ascendant. Middle Island officially became South Island only in 1907. By then its fortunes had begun a slow decline. Yet when I was growing up in Christchurch in the 1960s, the South Island still seemed Middle Island ascendant. Farmers rode on the sheep's back. They drove American Fords and Chevs in an era when a new car was one less than 20 years old. Christchurch was fat and happy. I went to Canterbury University when it boasted the best-known academics in the land. It was the haven of choice for some of the nation's finest architects, artists and writers. If you wanted to be a doctor, surveyor, dietitian or dentist, you went further south to Otago University. For a good time in a summer paradise, you went to Nelson, where you could not only parade on Tahuna Nui's beach, but pay for it by picking tobacco. I never expected to move from the south. Why would I? The television studios were the most prolific in the country. It had thriving newspapers, the best live theatre and universities, great music. But by the end of the millennium, the South Island's population was down to 1/4 of New Zealand's, and the ratio was falling. A new Golden Fleece was proving elusive. Christchurch was once convinced that it could become the Silicon Valley of New Zealand. The West Coast still believes there is uranium in its mountains. At the top of the island, wonder crops from blueberries to green tea came and went. Many a new candidate raised its head, ran the gauntlet, and collapsed exhausted. But the Golden Fleece still had to be somewhere, didn't it? Perhaps it lay in Aucklanders, escaping a city where property prices had defied every law of gravity. Average homebuyers there had only two choices: to take on mortgages whose repayment times were measured galactically, or to move somewhere south. The South Island resounds with stories of fleeing Aucklanders cashing